the collapse of consciousness, how we are creating the dumbest generation. Imagine waking up one morning and realizing that intelligence is no longer a virtue but a burden, where the simple act of questioning the official narrative makes you dangerous, and critical thinking is aggressively replaced by sheer emotional reaction. Think about the chilling paradox we inhabit. We live in the most connected, technologically advanced era in human history, and yet, never before have people been so violently disconnected from truth, genuine wisdom, and self-awareness. Something profound and deeply disturbing is happening. We are witnessing not merely a slow cultural decline, but an outright intellectual collapse. The slow, systematic creation of what could truthfully be called the dumbest generation in history. This is not an insult to any particular age group, but a critical reflection of the environment our society has become. Our world rewards noise over knowledge, superficial appearance over deep substance, and blinding speed over measured understanding. We have access to the collective wisdom of humanity in the palm of our hands, yet we use it primarily for distraction, hollow validation, and endless trivial entertainment. The problem is not the technology itself, but how we have allowed it to fundamentally reshape our minds, our attention, and our very souls. Before we go deeper, take a crucial moment to reflect. How often do you genuinely think for yourself? How often do you actively question the flood of information you consume daily? Do you ever consciously pause before instantly reacting? Or has your mind been deeply conditioned to respond without delay to the next available stimulus? These questions are not meant to accuse, but to violently awaken. Because the terrifying truth is, the greatest threat to humanity today is not raw ignorance. It is the illusion of knowledge. If you enjoy exploring the deeper dimensions of human consciousness and culture, make sure to subscribe to this channel and share this analysis. This video may challenge some of your most cherished beliefs, but if you stay until the end, you'll discover the insights that can truly change the way you perceive the world. And most importantly, the final revelation, the most powerful one of all. The leveling force, digital mediocrity. To understand how we've arrived at this point, we must look beyond the simple scapegoats of smartphones, social media, or education systems. The roots of this phenomenon go deep into philosophy and psychology. The philosopher Søren Kierkegaard once issued a stark warning that the greatest danger to humanity is the leveling of the individual, the destructive process by which everyone becomes the same, not through equality of potential, but through a shared, aggressive mediocrity. In our age, that leveling force is the pervasive digital culture. It makes everyone feel like an expert, yet no one truly understands anything deeply. It gives the intoxicating illusion of participation, but brutally removes the responsibility of profound thought. Psychologists like Carl Jung also foresaw this collective decay of consciousness. He spoke chillingly of the mass man, the person who has surrendered their individuality, their moral compass, to passively blend into the collective. When you lose your capacity for inner reflection, you become terrifyingly vulnerable to the manipulation of mass opinion. Jung warned that the crowd mind is dangerous because it destroys the capacity for nuanced moral judgment. When thinking becomes collective, it ceases to be deep. It becomes reactive, intensely emotional, and profoundly superficial. Look around. Is that not precisely what defines our current era? Social media has violently transformed our brains into feedback loops of fleeting dopamine and external validation. Instead of diligently cultivating wisdom, we desperately curate flattering images of ourselves to fit the fleeting trends. Instead of learning, we compulsively scroll. Instead of thinking, we instantly react. What we call communication has devolved into performance. What we call information has become overwhelming, distracting noise. The philosopher Neil Postman, in his prophetic book Amusing Ourselves to Death, warned that technology would not enslave us through outright force, but through seductive pleasure. He compared our future not to Orwell's oppressive 1984, but to Huxley's beguiling Brave New World, where people are controlled not by fear, but by relentless distraction. In that world, truth becomes irrelevant because no one cares enough to seek it. That world is not coming, it has already arrived. Ask yourself, when was the last time you read something genuinely challenging? Not just because it was long, but because it actively required you to think. When was the last time you felt uncomfortable with your own ignorance and decided to genuinely learn rather than simply scrolling past it? Our attention has become the new global currency, and the systems around us are flawlessly designed to capture it, fragment it, and sell it back to us, piece by piece. The tragic result is a generation that completely confuses opinions with facts, fleeting feelings with universal truths, and transient trends with genuine meaning. The factory of obedience, education, and the illusion of reality. The dumbing down of society is not an accident. It is the calculated consequence of how modern systems, educational, cultural, and political, are structurally designed. This manipulation of awareness did not begin with algorithms. It began long before, when society decisively concluded that conformity was more valuable than consciousness. From our earliest childhood, we are aggressively taught not to question, but to memorize, not to explore, but to comply. Our education systems have become factories of obedience rather than true sanctuaries of wisdom. Ivan Illich, in his book Deschooling Society, argued that formal education has been used to mercilessly standardize the human mind. Much like industrial machines standardize production, the system rewards mechanical repetition, not genuine creativity. It prizes good grades over good questions. Children grow up learning exactly how to pass tests, not how to profoundly think. By the time they reach adulthood, their natural vital curiosity has been tragically replaced by a paralyzing fear of being wrong. And a society that is afraid of error inevitably becomes a society that is afraid of truth. The real danger emerges when these same minds, conditioned to conform, enter a digital environment that feeds them personalized illusions. The algorithms learn their fears, their raw desires, and their unconscious biases, and then feed them more of the same, trapping them in invisible echo chambers. What they see feels like the truth, but it is only a reflection of their own conditioning. As the French philosopher Jean Baudrillard once observed, we no longer live in reality, but in simulacra, a world of copies without any original source. The truth has been violently replaced by what merely feels true. The average person today spends far more time staring at screens than they do in nature, with family, or even simply in their own thoughts. Their reality is relentlessly mediated through pixels. Their emotions are dictated by fleeting trends. Their sense of self-worth rises and falls with digital approval. And as attention spans shrink, so does the capacity for deep, sustained thinking. We no longer process complex ideas. We consume only disposable fragments. We are utterly flooded with information, yet absolutely starved for meaning. Ask yourself this: when was the last time you sat in complete silence, without music, without a phone, without a screen, and simply listened to the sound of your own thoughts? For many, silence is unbearable because it exposes the terrifying emptiness within. The mind, once trained for constant stimulation, becomes restless and panicked in stillness. But it is in that precise stillness that awareness grows and wisdom is born. The modern world desperately tries to make us forget this, because a conscious, reflective mind cannot be easily controlled. The love of servitude, control disguised as comfort. As Aldous Huxley warned, the most effective form of tyranny is the one that makes people love their servitude. When entertainment becomes the primary tool of social control, people no longer violently resist. They comply willingly, falsely believing they are free. Today's digital platforms are not simply neutral tools. They are highly sophisticated psychological environments designed to condition attention, emotion, and thought. The more addicted we become, the more utterly predictable we are. And predictability in the hands of the few is absolute power. We have aggressively replaced depth with speed. We scroll faster, think faster, react faster, but comprehend less. The philosopher Byung-Chul Han describes this as the society of fatigue, where endless stimulation leads to mental exhaustion and spiritual emptiness. People are not inherently dumb because they lack intelligence, but because their vital mental energy is constantly dispersed and consumed by overwhelming trivialities. The modern mind is brutally overstimulated, yet profoundly undernourished. Even the core idea of being informed has been corrupted. The relentless news cycle no longer seeks truth. It seeks engagement. Outrage and fear sell better than reasoned understanding. Every headline is now professionally crafted to provoke instantaneous emotion, not deep reflection. As a result, we mistake being emotionally reactive for being intellectually awake. But reacting is not thinking. It is its exact opposite. Carl Jung warned that when we lose contact with our inner self, we become susceptible to mass psychosis, the collective madness that arises when individuals stop thinking independently. He saw this phenomenon take root in the 20th century through state propaganda. But what he could not have imagined is how effortlessly the 21st century would perfect it through technology. Manipulation no longer comes from loud central voices, but from silent, personalized algorithms that learn us better than we know ourselves. The Last Man and the Existential Vacuum. The German philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche foresaw this in his concept of the last man, a being who seeks only maximum comfort and safety, who no longer dreams of greatness or transcendence, and who violently avoids pain and risk. Nietzsche warned that when humanity reaches this stage, it ceases to evolve. It becomes docile, complacent, and ultimately empty. The last man is no longer a warning. He is everywhere. He scrolls through life in pursuit of the next dopamine hit, the next cheap distraction, the next digital validation. He has traded profound wisdom for convenience, genuine courage for comfort, and honest reflection for instantaneous reaction. Viktor Frankl called the spiritual emptiness left by this decline the existential vacuum. The constant bombardment of information without context numbs the spirit. The constant comparison to others destroys self-worth. The constant pursuit of pleasure replaces deeper purpose. And in that spiritual vacuum, manipulation thrives effortlessly. The antidote: silence and the art of rebellion. The awakening begins the moment you recognize the pattern. Once you see the mechanisms behind the illusion, how easily emotions are weaponized against reason, how outrage replaces understanding, and how division replaces dialogue, you begin to actively regain your power. The truth is both simple and terrifying. We are not just creating the dumbest generation in history, we are allowing it. Every moment we choose convenience over curiosity, comfort over courage, and distraction over depth, we actively contribute to this silent collapse of consciousness. Awareness, real, painful awareness, has always been the cure for ignorance. The first step to reclaiming our minds is to recognize the true mental prison we inhabit. Jiddu Krishnamurti once stated that it is no measure of health to be well adjusted to a profoundly sick society. We live in a culture that rewards conformity, not creativity, imitation, not insight. It teaches us to think strictly within the boundaries and punishes those who dare to question them. Yet all great progress began with someone who refused to obey. To awaken is to become dangerous to the systems that thrive on your unconsciousness. This awakening begins in silence. Turn off the noise, the endless scroll, the constant notifications, the manufactured outrage. In that silence, you will begin to hear something most people have forgotten: your own thoughts. Reflection is rebellion. The act of thinking deeply and slowly in a world that actively discourages thought is revolutionary. You do not need external permission to think. You need the internal courage to face what you might discover. Ask yourself, what do I truly know? Not what I've been told, not what I've read online, but what I have experienced as true in my own life. This distinction between belief and understanding is what separates genuine wisdom from mere ignorance. Reclaiming the ancient arts. Reclaiming intelligence is not about accumulating more facts. It is about restoring meaning to our lives. It's about remembering that truth is not found in algorithms or popular ideologies, but in direct experience, deep introspection, and sincere empathy. We must actively relearn the ancient art of questioning. Socrates didn't teach answers, he taught the courage to ask better questions. Today, questions are discouraged because they disrupt the smoothly running system. But every great breakthrough, every leap in human understanding began with a single question that fearlessly challenged the accepted narrative. What if the world is not as it seems? What if the very systems we trust to educate us are designed to keep us docile? What if intelligence, as we define it today, is a clever disguise for conformity? These questions are dangerous because they ignite awareness. And awareness, once awakened, cannot be truly silenced. The antidote is not to reject technology entirely, but to master it, to use it consciously rather than being used by it. The difference between a tool and a trap lies entirely in who controls whom. Cultivate depth in an age of debilitating superficiality. Read challenging books. Seek a silence that scares you. Engage in conversations that make you uncomfortable. Disconnect from the digital world long enough to reconnect with the real one, with nature, with people, with yourself. Remember that wisdom is not a product of speed, but of stillness. The final revelation, a choice. This is the final, most powerful truth of all. The future of intelligence depends entirely on you. Society may be drifting toward collective stupidity, but consciousness evolves individually. You cannot single-handedly awaken the world, but you can, most certainly, awaken yourself. And in doing so, you instantly become a powerful beacon for others. Light does not argue with the darkness, it simply shines. The revolution of the mind begins one person at a time. One conscious act of awareness, one choice of truth, one refusal to conform. We are not doomed to create the dumbest generation in history. We are right now capable of becoming the most awakened one, but only if we choose consciousness over comfort, truth over illusion, and wisdom over distraction. The power lies not in information, but in profound understanding. The world doesn't need more data. It needs more depth. It doesn't need louder voices, it needs clearer minds. So ask yourself now, with brutal honesty, will you continue to be shaped by the noise? Or will you reclaim your sacred right to think, to question, and to awaken? The dumbest generation is not a prophecy, it is a choice. And the moment you decide to see clearly, to seek meaning, to live with awareness, that's the moment the illusion begins to crumble. Because in the end, intelligence is not measured by what you know, but by your ability to see what others refuse to see. And perhaps that is where humanity's true, profound evolution begins.